I remember when I was about 11, 12 years of age and I hit puberty, and I was suddenly overwhelmed with this surge of intense erotic feelings towards my own sex. All of the other older boys around me at school became incredibly attractive. And before I knew it, I lived in this world of homosexual fantasy. It wasn't until the age of 14 when I realized that these overwhelming feelings and attractions, they weren't going to go away. In fact, they were increasing. I called something called the Lesbian and Gay Switchboard, which was a helpline for people who were lesbian and gay. It took me 6 attempts to call them. I was that scared, really scared. Within 2 minutes of the phone call, when I explained that I found other boys really attractive, the guy at the end of the phone said to me, "You're gay, and you have to accept it. And if you don't, you'll never be happy." What choice did I have? Basically, he told me I was born this way, and I believed him. So I embraced the label. I assumed I was gay. It wasn't until 17, so a further 3 years later, that I came out to my family in floods of tears. I just assumed that everybody and anybody would reject me. After all, that was the message that I was picking up in society, that somehow or other I was lesser than everybody else. Amazing for me is that they just loved me. They embraced me and they accepted me for who I was. I'm aware that I was one of the first guys ever to come out in my high school. And then at the age of 18, I went to the City of London to university. And it was there that I threw myself into gay activism. I was also the first guy to come out in my university. Basically, I was the queer society. And it was there that after several hundred sexual partners, that I ended up with a long-term boyfriend. And I'll be honest with you, I was never happier. There I was with the man of my dreams. He loved me and I loved him. Then one day, there was another guy at university and he said to me, "James, do you want more love in your life?" What would you answer? I said, "Yes, of course." And he invited me to hang out with himself and some of his friends. And I found myself attending this gathering of just young adults who were just learning to love Jesus and to get to know him, wanting to worship him and break open God's word. And within a number of weeks, I found myself turning to God and basically saying, "God, whatever stands in the way of your love, I am sorry. But I want more of your love in my life." It seemed really simple, seemed really easy. In fact, it was really simple and it was really easy. Then the journey began. And within a number of weeks, having been walked alongside with this friend of mine who invited me to receive more love in my life, I began to spend time daily with God, just a few minutes, then a few more minutes. And I began to open up God's word, the Bible, and to see what God was really saying about me. Within a number of weeks, I experienced a peace that I didn't know existed. My boyfriend said to me, "There's something different about you. I want a slice of what you've got. Can I have that?" I said, "Yes." So he too began to follow Jesus. He too experienced God's peace. And before you knew it, we were this model gay Christian couple. We thought we'd arrived. But the more deeply I entered into that stillness and that quiet place with God, I began to see more and more and more that my boyfriend was trying to find in me something that I was trying to find in him. That we were looking for an affirmation of who we were and trying to find it from each other. But that deep down, neither of us could truly affirm each other in our masculinity. What needed to happen really was we still needed to demystify what it meant to be male. And that's why we found ourselves so deeply erotically attracted towards each other and still, of course, towards other men. After some time, I just had this deep sense that I needed to finish this relationship. And many people, including people in the church, told me, "You're mad, don't do this. You have the best gay relationship we know." But I still felt I needed to take that risk. And I finished my relationship. What happened next is that within a very short space of time, many of my friends began to point out to me that I didn't have many healthy boundaries in my life. To be honest with you, I got all sorts of issues that I'd never seen before. And so I began to begin a therapeutic journey. I met with a Christian counselor. We never discussed homosexuality or sexuality in general. We merely looked at the reasons why I got such a depth of anxiety within me. We started looking at the reasons why every now and then I dipped into depression, about why and where these suicidal feelings that I'd experienced, certainly since puberty, where they might have come from. Over a number of months that extended into years, we began to uncover the fact that I had a number of what I now understand were comorbidities, that there were a number of different issues from my past that I'd never looked at. First of all, I'd become addicted to pornography, which I was exposed to at the age of 8. I had repressed numerous experiences of being sexually abused as a child. I'd been misgendered throughout my early childhood. I'd been given female roles in drama all the time while I was at boys' school. Partly because I began my education just 1 year when I was a very small child, aged 4 to 5, at a girls' school. And rather than starting that journey on a trajectory or a journey with the other boys, I'd begun that journey with other girls, and I'd made that my home. I'd even, on one occasion I remember, been dressed in girls' clothing and been laughed at by the boys when I was the age of 3, my earliest memory ever. As I began to go through these different issues that had layered and formed, in a sense, my personality and the character and the essence of who I was, what happened is I began to reject all the ways in which I'd failed to identify with the true masculine. But here I was, bringing all of my history before the cross of Jesus Christ. And in his word, God was saying to me, "James, I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten," which is from the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25. I took these words very, very seriously. And God, of course, was faithful to me because he doesn't know how not to be. And slowly but surely, over these months and years, bit by bit, step by step, I began to unmystify what it meant to be male. I began to take my place as a man alongside other men. And for a time, I felt actually quite asexual. So I wasn't experiencing any same-sex attraction at all. And then, much to my own surprise, because nobody warned me about this, and certainly I wasn't seeking after this, but then I began to notice the curves of women and the smell of women. And I began to see that I couldn't have been a woman after all, even though for some years I believed that. And that actually, deep, deep down, there was this male within me that was made to unite to woman. And as soon as I got to grips with the fact that that could be true, I dared again to take the steps to believe that that could happen in my life. I began to date women, but only one at a time. And eventually I got married and I became a father. Everything I was told as a young man, as a gay man, that I could not be. And I came to a realization, not just as I walked this journey, but as I met many other people, many men, many women who walked a similar journey, not just around sexuality, but also around their identity. Others who'd also believed that they were in the wrong sex, in the wrong body. But they too began to walk with Christ. And they too began to enter into a place whereby everything that was, in a sense, knotted up or wasn't quite in place began to settle into place. And we began to realize that we were made by love, for love. And that God had more love for us, a greater love that any human being or even any number of human beings could give us. Jesus Christ became our central focus. And there we came to understand the truth of who we are. That truth calling us onto this pathway through the narrow gate. And not just a pathway, but along that pathway, we began to experience a fullness of life that we could never have understood and never have imagined beforehand. Our eyes couldn't see that. Our ears couldn't hear it. Our minds couldn't have imagined the incredible things that God had prepared for us as we chose to enter into that love relationship with Him. I've come to realize today that certainly I was never born gay, even though they told me I was. I've met with literally hundreds, if not almost 1,000 people, if not more than that, who've also been told the same thing and come to realize that they too weren't born gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender or queer, but that each one of us was made for that love relationship with Jesus Christ. And I can't help but smile, because nothing and no one beats this relationship with Jesus.